Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you so much for attending this event. The idea of today is to see how it's a proposition about how to work with these two tools, OKRs and Wardley Maps, together, and see how they work in practice and how we can combine them in a way that enable us to get advantage of it. The idea of combining this type of tools, in this case OKRs and Wardley Maps, is to also to understand better where the value of each one resides, and it also enables you to understand better where the limits of each one of the tools are. So we are going to review a little bit of things that comes from both worlds, how they fit, where are the limits, and how to iterate with both of them. Okay, so let's start. So we have this table of contents. We are going to introduce a use case, principles, kernel, diagnosis, guiding principles, current actions, and takeaways. Okay? So, well, this is the use case. Let's figure out that we individually are the chief information officer or the chief technology officer of a company and of a health sector, and that we are in the beginning of 2023, and this company basically manufactures different test equipment for hospitals and other type of health system spaces. And the company has two factories with one laboratory, around 100 people, 40 people in the laboratory, 10 people from management team, 70 people in the manufacturing plant, etc. And suddenly, as we are in 2023, the chief executive officer requests us, hey, guys, I am just reading and reading and reading that generative AI, it's going to be disruptive, blah, 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 blah. And I want an implementation plan about generative AI technologies for the next 3 quarters. And at the end of the year, so in 9 months, I would like to have another plan for the new fiscal year, and I want to be able to present to the owners, etc., etc. So we are in the middle of we have all our project and service activities, solution activities, laboratory activities, all the different issues that we can have. And in addition to that, on top of that, the disruption of this technology should be taken like that. So what happens here is basically, well, we need to continue with our activities, but we need to set up different actions and make decisions about what to do first. And once that we make decisions, execute what we are being asked for. Okay, so we are going to use this case as an example. What happens first is that, well, generative AI, all this uncertainty that we have in front of that. So not only that it's something new, it's something we need to understand how the activities are working, how it's going to, what are the areas of the company that they can affect. So there are many questions. And here, at the first thing to understand is that we need to go from where we are, that it could be the start of the initiative it's coming, and then start performing iterations and gaining situational awareness, taking as much information as possible of the situation, and start navigating through this uncertainty, trying to find out the way to arrive to the goal that we are trying to. Okay, so that's the first thing. Here on the kernel, Gerard?
Yeah. So to do this, we're gonna be following the, let's say, this approach by Richard Ramel, which we like very much because it sets the foundations of what a strategy should be looking like, and the key components of a gate strategy. And this is really cool because we can see in a single picture where each of these frameworks fits in. And any strategy starts with a challenge, right? So what's going on here? What problem are we facing, or what long-term goal we have as a business? Then we do a diagnosis of the situation and define a guiding policy. This is where Wardley Maps plays a crucial role by letting us grow this situational awareness, identify different paths or strategic hypotheses. But then what happens, and what King will explain now, is how we turn this into action, into a coherent set of actions. And this is where OKRs come into play. So briefly, imagine that if you don't know this model of Richard Ramel, so to understand these key components of a strategic statement, let's say, and the challenge, imagine you go to a doctor and say, hey, I have this issue. I have a terrible headache. That's your challenge. You know what's going on. The doctor will ask you several questions. You will review your history, will identify some symptoms, and based on that, the doctor will make a diagnosis. And from that, the doctor will define a therapeutic approach. That's the guiding policy. This is a policy. It's a highway towards somewhere, but with not defined boundaries or no milestones on the way. So then, together with the doctor, you will define an action plan, which is taking some sort of medication, maybe surgery, diet, and health, exercise, whatever. Those are the goals and the key results that you're going to be measuring later. So this said, Joaquin, your turn until we get into the OKRs part.
Okay. Yeah. The structure proposed by Richard Ramel, it also fits with Wardley mapping in one of the sense. And if you remember, Wardley mapping strategy cycle, it's based on the OODA loop of John Boyd, where we have an iteration: observe, orient, decide, act. That iteration, it's important to keep in mind. We are going to do today a playing exercise, but we need to take into account that this structure of the find the challenge, diagnosis, guiding principle, coordinate actions, it should be iterated, and it should be working where the iterations are not always synchronized. What does it mean? It means that, well, in the case of Acme Health company, that it's quite a small company. Well, it's 100 people. It's a good bunch of people. But if we are talking about a bigger situation where we can have different areas that we are working at the strategic level, that it could be solution development, it could be the overall strategy of the company, it could be human resources activities. We can have different OODA loops working, and they don't necessarily need to be synchronized. We don't need to be on observe in all the activities that we are doing. It could be that we are in action related to human resources activities. It could be that we are observed in the innovation laboratory, etc., etc., etc. So that iteration, it's important. So talking about guided diagnosis, how we do a diagnosis following the principles of Richard Rummel when we are working with Wardley Maps. Well, we do it with the map, that is the landscape, and the climate, that they are the climatic patterns. And I have added also the type of inertia. You know that Wardley mapping contains 16 types of inertia that a component or a company can be affected. And they are also forces that can enable you to define what is happening in an organization. The second one, it's the climatic patterns that Simon put after the landscape, but Sun Tzu put first. So Sun Tzu defined the purpose, then the climate, and then the landscape. And to me, sometimes it's more useful to start with the climate before to start mapping. And if you think about physical geography, it makes sense. So we utilize in the order that it's better for us. The climatic patterns, as you know, it's the external forces that they are going to affect not only my company, but all the competitors and all the marketplace. So once that we are able to identify where we are through the map and what are the external forces that they affect to us, we are going to be able to jump into, okay, we are orientated, we know where we are, so let's try to understand what are the choices. And following the OODA loop, it's, okay, we need to decide. To decide, we have the leadership principles, we have the gameplays, and we have the person or group of people that they need to make decisions with the ability and with the willing to say, okay, let's create some choices that they are viable, and then let's make the decision to go for that. The point is that when you are defining choices and you are making decisions, that decisions in an organization that is structured, it's not only to say, I want to do this and we will do this in this way. No, it's a way that we make decisions, we want to do this, and this is our objectives. And then we delegate these objectives to the different groups that they need to implement. And they are going to still working in front of uncertainty. And this is where OKRs is going to enable us to delegate the authority to say, I want to go here, and this is the objective. Now you are going to define how to do it, and the way to do it, and the way to measure it. So last but not least, and if you have read about all the principles and base of knowledge of Wardley mapping, coherent actions, Simon never says the way that you need to execute the things. So he always says you need to use the appropriate methods, which is for him to be agile. To be agile means to use the appropriate methods, which means that you can be using agile for activities that they are in Genesis, Lean for activities that they are custom built or products, and Six Sigma for the components that they are required to increase the productivity, decrease the costs, etc., etc. So here In this case, we are going to be working with OKRs.
One comment, can you
Yep.
just to comment a little bit on the third point here, we will see in more detail later, but connecting with what you were saying about the other loops and this cycle, this iteration, or basically to reduce uncertainty. If you look at this tree that we have here, challenge, strategic hypothesis, opportunities, and indicators, which is a way to define OKRs, we follow the same approach of Richard Ramoth, but applied to the OKRs. You can see it in a fractal way if you want. So we have strategy that uses this kernel approach, and to deploy the strategy to define these actions, we use the same approach, but with a different technique, but it's still the same. You have a challenge, you have a diagnose, you have a guideline, and then you define the actions, right? So it's a cycle within a cycle. It's basically all the same, and we could move those cycles to product discovery, to product delivery. It's basically always the same, right? The OODA loop or the PDCA, whatever you want to call it. It's essentially the same, but we use different techniques all the way down. Okay, just wanted to mention that, and then later on we will see more details.
Okay. Okay, so now let's move to the diagnosis. In the diagnosis, I would like to highlight this point where in theory, we are going to be working with the climate and landscape. And once that we together define that the capability is in one position, we are going to try to move that capability to another position. And this is going to be an implementation work that we want to elevate the value or the visibility, or to elevate the maturity that it will be to move on the x-axis. It could be a marketing campaign to take a product up and try to make it more visible, or it could be a operational action to try to improve or to increase the ability to multiply that solution for other customers. Here it's a map related to the use case of Acme Health. If you remember the use case, well, when we have been doing the map, we have picked the employee as the anchor, as generative AI can have a lot of benefits for this user. In which way? Well, we don't know. So the first thing is to identify the user needs, improve time response, transform information, as is generative AI, or find information faster. When we are in the middle of 2023, there are capabilities that they already are there. And one of them is ChatGPT. And there is the fourth need that I have added. It's other uses that we don't know. And it's a way to admit that in reality, many companies are trying to figure out that generative AI can help them for improving a lot of efficiencies. But in reality, there are still uses that we don't know. And as the practice associated to the technology is not evolved. So in my head, for instance, if I think in the 20th century and what Henry Ford did with the construction and the manufacturing of cars, in reality, Henry Ford had a lot of technology that it was already working. But what he completely changed, it was the practice, it was the way to do the manufacturing activities. And that industrialization and change of how to do the things, it was what in practical made the difference with respect to the competitors. Here, with the generative AI, we are all practicing and we are all evolving using the solutions, but we are also learning, and we are also learning how to use it and to take more advantage of that. But in reality, there is no a clear way about how the generative AI should be used, because in reality, we are all experimenting. And that's the reason I have put in between Genesis and custom build. When this ChatGPT, I have linked that to provide answers to external questions and find information faster. Well, in a company, provide answers to procedures is something that takes time, and you'll always need to find the people that they know how to do things. So it could be something that it's valuable. Then I have drawn Microsoft Office 365 Copilot as a future activity because it was published in October, but in this case, it's still something that belongs to the future. And to build an LLM environment, it's something that you could do in 2023. So then you could be saying, okay, I can provide answers to procedures. So this is something I don't want to have an external tool. I want to have an internal tool by safety issues, safety reasons. And I could have the choices of building by myself, or I can have the option of procure an LLM environment that is procured by a supplier. So here, I'm thinking about policy update, governance, because we want to be sure that the people is understanding the safety risks of using ChatGPT with the internal data of the company. What we have, it's some type of diagnosis of what is happening with respect to this new technology that enable us to orientate ourselves. Second, it gives us a little bit of sense of what's going to be happening with Microsoft Copilot and the alternatives that I have for my own generative AI solution, so that we can make choices. So what is the best choice? What is the best thing to do with respect to an internal LLM environment? What should be the main goal of that LLM environment? Should we use for all the employees? Should we focus all that work on the laboratory people that they are trying to evolve the solutions that we have in our equipment? What does make more sense? So what are the decisions we want to take? So I move to the next one, and I am the first action to do on a map is to identify the key areas where I want to focus. And in this case, I'm going to focus on Microsoft Office 365 and on the building LLM environments. What are the decisions? What are the leadership action? In the first one, I'm going to wait for Microsoft 365. And the first decision is going to say, okay, this is coming. So, and I want that the employees take advantage of that. So what I can do today is to train the people as much as possible in the use of generative AI and educate them so that they are not using in a non-appropriate way. So, basically due to safety and security reasons. And I'm going to wait till Microsoft is published, and I'm going to talk to procurement so that the employees with computers have access to these technologies. The second decision is related to build LLM environments. And here, I don't know exactly where a technology like this can benefit me. I don't know if it's for finance, HR, or for the laboratory. I don't know. And I have to admit that I don't know exactly what is the best use for them. What I want to do is to say, okay, as a CIO of the company, I want to create a project that it could be something like 1 or 2 quarters that enable a couple of teams, the laboratory and the administration teams, to work on an environment, enable the technical team to train, deploy, and enable the users to use that environment with a specific data from the company and understand what are the outcomes that they come from there. So this is going to be my 2 projects to enable that for 2 groups, laboratory and administrative staff, and my technical team is going to work on that objective. How? I have no clue. They have to do it.
One comment here, if you allow me, Joaquin, just even though there's a lot of uncertainty here, and Joaquin was saying, yes, we don't know a lot of things, but there's already a decision taken here, an important decision, which is build an LLM environment rather than procuring one. And if the math would be different, if the LLM environment would be in industrialized form, maybe the decision wouldn't be so straightforward to build an LLM by yourself, but rather get it from a third party because it's industrialized, right? Nobody is going to build a cloud nowadays. You get Azure or Amazon Web Services, and you're done. But in this case, it's still evolving. So maybe you are in the situation as a business to create a great LLM for you, because it's not yet in any industrialized form for your business, for your vertical, let's say. In a few years, we will see. But now, it's a wise decision. Who knows, right? But it's already a decision out of this map. Okay, and this is very important. This is, even we are still in the diagnosis phase, there is a very important decision here, which has an impact.
Okay. Then the third part of the diagnosis is they are the climatic patterns. And the climatic patterns are ignored a lot, and they should then be ignored. And if we take a map, a physical map, and we are in the highway, the map enables us to understand where we are and asking, hey, where I am? No, I am in the middle of Ohio. Okay, but I want to go to Chicago. Okay, what is the road? This road. Okay. You need to take this road to Chicago. Okay, if I go to Chicago, I know that this is a highway. But there is a moment where I need to make a decision. I mean, my decision is to exit in the highway to Chicago. Fortunately, in the highway, we have traffic signs that they say Chicago on the right. And then we take that exit. In business, we don't have that traffic light. We don't have traffic lights that they say, hey, this is now the moment to make this decision and to exit in this part of the map. There is no that traffic lights. The only way to know and to try to anticipate a little bit about what is happening in the context is thanks to the climatic patterns. That's the traffic light that can, that's this traffic sign that can enable us to anticipate and understand what are the moments in the competitive landscape to make decisions, to accelerate when you have something and it's more or less the right moment to jump into the market. When it's the moment to move from product to service. When there are signs that there is some need that has been there for years, but now the market is showing some traction that now makes sense to go ahead with that MVP that has been there parked for years, that you have the technology, but that you knew that the people were not needing that, so you didn't move it. The climatic patterns are very important and very interesting to review. It takes time, that's true. But they are the traffic signs that can enable us in that part of the diagnosis. Second point will be to move to guiding principles. And in guiding principles, when we are working with Wardley Maps, we can use the table of game plays proposed by Simon Barley with the 61 type of gameplays to try to figure out what are the areas that I can work with. So in the case that we are working, we can try to understand, okay, user perception, I need to educate my users, I need to understand what is happening, I need to look for alliances, I need to understand who with this new technology are being the first mover, who are the fast follower, because at the end of the day, we need to pick up which type of company we are going to use LLMs. And we need to figure out many questions about that. And the gameplays can help us to orientate about the different topics that we should be thinking about. Then, in the definition of the strategic choices, there are some guiding principles. In this case, the strategic options that we have defined is, okay, and one of the guiding principles is enable employees to be able to use generative AI to improve their own position. And the second is enable LLMs environments as the laboratory to explore points of improvement in the use of test equipment that we manufacture. This is where we are going to take the extensive use cases that we could have in a company, and we are going to say, let's reduce and define specific places where we want to work. In addition to that, we potentially have been working with legal department. Legal department, it's communicating with employees about the proper use of LLMs solutions inside of the company, reminding the importance of safety, reminding the importance of security, the data security that we are managing, etc., 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 and the intellectual property that we have in the laboratory that shouldn't be used within these tools. Other decision, and this decision is also part of the guiding principle, is we are not going to implement generative AI solution for Office aspects because we are going to wait for Office 365. It looks like a stupid decision, but now and so many people can figure out that, oh no, I don't want to wait. Well, sometimes and many times, and this is a very basic example, but many times to be the faster is not the best option. And when you are talking about some disruption, like in this case, generative AI, there are aspects where you need to move quickly, but there are some aspects where it's better to wait and see and continue doing the diagnosis before to make the decision to go. Because making the decision to go at company level means to allocate resources, work on specific programs, and take the focus and the motivation of the people on something that they are going to be fighting to get done. and we need to be and calibrate the decisions in the right and in the best timing as possible. So it's something that if we embark ourselves in one project like that, we need to try to promote the best conditions to make that project success.
I have a question for you. I shouldn't be asking questions because I'm the presenter, but now it just pop up in my mind. So, isn't there something with regards to the capital flows in Wardley Maps? With regards to this last point you were making, so why would I invest in such a big thing like developing AI for my office work, whilst the capital flows in my company come from the laboratory? And
Yeah.
is there something that does it make sense? So
Yeah, let's put the situation where it's defined a couple of projects where you are building LLM environment for the laboratory and for the employees. And when you are in the first iteration, you are doing the whole work to make them available. The people of the companies testing and training the environment with data from the company. And then suddenly, imagine from both groups, one of them are able to find interesting use cases that it's beneficial for them, and the other one is not. So you're going to see in the map that some of these two groups, it's going to be working better than the other. And at the end of the day, that it's represented in the map, like the employee is taking advantage of that. So in this case, when I am talking about build an LLM environment, I don't want to put all the eggs on the same cage. I want to put in separate places, laboratory and the rest of the employees. And it will be something like an MVP or two projects where I want to see which one of them survive or which one of them make it better. Because I don't know. I don't know which one is going to take more benefit. And I am working with the assumption that as I don't know, I need to put in practice. So I go, observe, orient, make the decision, and then act. Once that I act, I get the feedback. And then with that feedback, I make the next decision. So that's the way to iterate. And you need to understand that you work in front of real uncertainty because you, in reality, you don't know. You don't know. And that's sometimes important to remind. And in the case of these two projects, there will be independent objectives. And then the teams, the IT team and the functional teams need to define the way to reach those objectives. So, code and actions.
yeah, let's go. Let's see if I can finish this part. So now it's we get the button from the strategy or the guiding policy, the guiding principles, and now we go one level deeper, which is okay, our challenge as a team or as a department or a business unit. We identify strategic hypotheses, then we see opportunities to validate, let's say, these strategic hypotheses, and how are we going to measure it? And following each one of these branches of these lines, we can define an OKR. This is the act part of the loop, right? It's we have observed, we have oriented ourselves, and we have taken some decision, which is focus here, focus there. Now, let's see how we achieve this. What are the milestones in the way, which are identified by objectives, and how we know we are there. which are identified by key results. This is one of the techniques we use when defining OKRs. There are several more, but I think it fits perfectly in the conversation we're having today. So let's go to the next one. Okay, there's a lot of text here, but let's see. It's a template to define OKRs from, let's say, from a strategic standpoint. Many templates that you may use or you may know about defining OKRs start with fluffy things or ambiguous things like mission and vision, and we like to connect OKRs to strategy. Here's why we start with the higher intent, which is, you don't need to read the whole text. You will have the slides and the video recording. It's what is the company trying to achieve? Where are we going as a business? This is the highest strategic intent. Then we define the objective. What is one example for one objective alone? Enhance laboratory efficiency through generative AI. It's huge. Now let's see how we detail it. First, we must ensure strategic fit. And how we do that? By being very explicit on how this objective connects to the strategic guidelines. You see, this is one of the guidelines that we have defined as an output, as an outcome of the Wardley Maps work, which is enable internal LLM environments for the laboratory. And then the narrative. So the explanation of why this is important and why are we doing it rather than doing something else. Let's explain why this objective is important and why it is important now. Okay. Then key results. For key results, we're not going to be discussing here the theory of key results. They can be more quantitative. These ones, they are explaining a little bit also the how we are planning to achieve. This depends on the situation, but they really indicate how we want to measure progress and success towards this objective. And then on the other part of the template, we have the time span, the dependencies, very important. We must not forget that we're not alone in the world. So we may have dependencies with the IT department and with manufacturing, okay? Because if we change things in the laboratory, we need to be in continuous conversation with manufacturing. Then boundaries. It's important to identify the boundaries, what is allowed to happen and what is not allowed to happen in these guidelines, in these milestones on the way, right? And here we have the Microsoft Office thing, we have to wait. And also, in our case, ensure that we follow the regulatory standards, okay? And implied task. This is a very important box of this template. It's not about defining features or defining initiatives. It's about identifying those things that need to happen to allow this objective to be achieved, right? It's not a roadmap, it's not a set of features or things we need to do, but just those things we need to bear in mind and that we need to make sure that we tackle, but they are not, let's say, part of the objectives or the initiatives that we're going to be developing itself, but they are very important. So we may secure partnerships, as we were mentioning. We may establish an AI task force, and we need to allocate budget. Right? Basically, those are the things that need to happen. Otherwise, we may not fulfill the objective. This is important. For instance, this is a goal for the company. Now we will see the goal for the laboratory. And this box is very important when you are in a team, is to raise your hand and say, hey, okay, we're going to pursue this goal, but we need these things to happen. Okay, otherwise we cannot achieve the goal. It's a kind of heads up, hey, we need your help, or we need the help of these people, or we need to focus on this. Otherwise, we cannot pursue this goal. So, next one.
Yeah, and before to jump on, I would like to also highlight the difficulty of defining the key results. And here, there are many factors related to return of investment that you need to calculate. So if I'm going to build something like a solution for LLMs for the laboratory, the key result is that it's going to reduce the development cycle by 20%. That 20% is not, it's associated to a cost and to a competitive advantage that I want to build to enable to be more competitive in the future. If it doesn't work, I need to understand if that key result, it was well defined and we were arriving very close to that one, and then evaluate if it was well defined or it was so much aggressive. Maybe with 15% it was enough or not. We don't know. And this is again the factor of iteration. It's very important to continue learning about how the things are evolving. Maybe in the third iteration, 20% is not enough. Maybe we can be more aggressive and try to go and capture 30%. So we also need to play with the iterations and with the right definition of the key results, because again, we are in front of uncertainty, and many times we are defining certain key results in a space where in reality, we don't know how fast I can go from point A to point B. Sorry.
Yeah, and that's why, no, fair enough. That's why you should be continuously reviewing this. We are almost running out of time, so I'm going to be rushing a little bit. Here, we would see, in addition to the first OKR, which is the first one you can see here, other two. One, as you can see in the strategic fit for the same strategic guideline, and the third one, which is tackling the other guideline. So we have two strategic options, two objectives for one objective for the other one. Okay, fair enough. This is not detailed as the other one. And but remember, we're not going to be using Microsoft Copilot. This has to wait. And then, which is the last part, now imagine we are a laboratory and we're going to be breaking down or connecting the wider objective, company objective number one, to our world in the laboratory, and we define our laboratory goals, which is the next one. And we can see can you change, Joaquin, please?
Yeah.
Okay. With this example, we have the objective on the left that we have seen, company objective. Now we are the laboratory team, and we say, okay, on top we have the challenge, which is we need to enhance laboratory efficiency through generative AI. Fair enough. Bit wide, a bit ambiguous. Let's see what needs to be true. What are the strategic hypotheses? This is just an example, but we are assuming we have a hypothesis that testing is an area where significant improvements can be made. We don't know. This is the hypothesis, right? And the other hypothesis is that we need to develop internal AI capability so we don't depend on third parties, which, remember, is connected to the map where we were saying that we don't want yet to get a provider. We need to develop that capability internally. Okay, so everything is connected here. The strategy may be wrong, but it's connected, right? That we don't know. That's why we iterate. But we have a strategy. Everybody understands why we're doing things, right? And below, we ask how might we validate this hypothesis? First, integrate AI into equipment testing processes, and the other one is foster a culture of continuous improvement and AI literacy. And below, we have 3 key results. These are very detailed key results. Some OKRs gurus would say that this is not how we define OKRs. It depends. Reality is not perfect. Sometimes we are a little bit more detail in defining how you plan to achieve the result, it's fine. Sometimes you just indicate the metric and the target and let people define how they are planning to achieve it. Fair enough. But for the sake of the argument, for the sake of this webinar, just wanted to put all in one slide. And each one of these branches, top down, would be one OKR. And we could fill the whole template that we have seen before. And that's it. You continue, Joaquin.
Yeah. So, well, this is we are finalizing. So let's do a summary. Where we work in front of uncertainty, we can combine Wardley mapping and OKRs to try to get advantage of the use of both tools. Basically, when we have a capability, we are trying to move to a point B from point A, and the OKRs is going to define how far I want to go, and it's going to enable us to trace a route for that. The point is that, as you know, the route is not straight. You need to move through the serendipity of the reality, that it's execution, and that execution sometimes doesn't work in the first try. So don't forget climatic patterns, and don't forget to do the activities in iterations. So that's also very important to continue learning what is happening and to getting all the new information as the basis to make new decisions. So that's also quite important. Something to add, Gerard?
Yeah, no, not here. No. As I was saying, sometimes we believe that strategy needs to be right. I mean, you don't know if a strategy is right or wrong until you validate. Hence, the importance of the cycles. Strategic cycle, OKR cycle, product cycle, everything is interconnected. The moment you miss one of these levels, everything goes south, right? That's how reality works. But let's make it agile and lean and the small iterations you can make to validate the most. This is always the same, all the way down from strategy to delivery. And here we have seen how Wardley Maps and OKRs integrate perfectly in this approach. And if you can just jump to the next one and we can say goodbye. Probably you have heard of it or not. I published this book 2 weeks ago. It's available on Amazon in all formats, and it has 2 chapters on Wardley Maps and OKRs, but it's basically focused on OKRs and how to make it work. It's not a theoretical book, except the first part, which is on strategy and has a deep dive into Wardley Maps, and a chapter with a whole breakdown of a case study of how to connect Wardley Maps with OKRs. And you can get it on Amazon in all over the world. And that's it from my side. Thank you very much for.
I don't know if anybody has any question or something that would like to comment, or some questions that it was not clear.
Yeah, we will. Someone asked before, just to mention that if we will be sharing the slides. Yeah, we will be sharing the slides and the recording and everything. So don't worry about that.
Okay.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Have you looked at, because I saw earlier in the Wardley map, you'd positioned the teams, the capabilities that you have. Have you looked at mapping the OKRs on the Wardley map and linking them? Because, you know, the team in a way goes through maturity and maybe has a certain pattern of work as well. Some teams are dealing with continuous improvement all the time, as other teams are innovating. And have you thought about mapping or looked at mapping the OKRs on the Wardley map to see whether the OKRs align with where the team is and where the objective that you want to achieve is? Because sometimes you can set an OKR on a team to do innovation, but they're only used to doing continuous, improvement or working in a certain way. Have you looked at how you use the Wardley map actually to map the OKRs to see alignment?
Conceptually, I have not done that. And I understand your point about the way that you work, and the distinction that Simon Varley does is that you should be using the right methods depending on where you are. And the example that you are giving is that you can try some group that it's used to work in the right space of the map, that it's more commodity. In a natural way, the people with those attitudes and with the ability to improve things are finally always working in that type of work.
Yeah.
And then you have people with other attitudes that they are more innovators, better risk takers, that they feel more comfortable with high uncertainty in front of them. They used to be working better in activities related to Genesis, that they are positioned in the Genesis space. But this is, I will say that I have not mapped that, but I take into consideration when you are reorganizing the people and the teams that you have. For instance, my experience when working with project teams and service teams, sometimes I have switched people from the service team to the project team, and then people from the service team to the project team, where the nature of the service is more activity related to commodity, and the activity related to project, it's more custom built. And in that way, I have been able to test if the people are able to perform better in one space or in the other. But I have not done that with a map. I have done just by, I will say, common sense of hearing what the people would like to do, understanding the expectations that they have with respect to one work on other. And when I have done with teams, it's to explain clearly the expectations with respect to different type of work. So I have been working with service teams that I have to work on a challenge that imply that they need to change their attitude for a while, let's say in that way. And saying, hey, we need to be able to do this small project inside of our service support, which means, it means that we need to be able to give ourselves the opportunity to fail, test things, try new things, because we need to build something while we are doing the service support. And it's that type of change of attitude, but I have not used map for that. I have used, I don't know, leadership skills and experience in working with people and setting expectations.
Yeah, thank you. I think you have a hand up.
Okay. Joel.
Hi, everyone. Joaquin and Yaran, thank you so much for the session. Extremely useful. Just a small question. So let's say the work that I do is, consulting with non-technical co-founders, helping them sort of build software that they are, looking to build on their own terms, things like that. I can understand. I mean, I see the connection from Wardley Maps to OKRs, right? Where OKRs without a connection to strategy become just fluffy, unstructured targets. I'm just asking this: do you have any sense in which one should not even get into OKRs, right? Like, is there any context in which you would say, hey, start with the map, and let's say the leadership or the client is saying, no, we really need OKRs. We really need to hold people accountable. And there is a tendency for non-technical people to feel safety with OKRs, but maybe they should just wait a while before getting into OKRs. You feel what I mean? So from your experience, would you say there's any context where OKRs are itself like premature, and the client should maybe stay with the Wardley map a little longer?
Well, the type of workshops that I do at consulting level, helping companies to facilitate the creation of a strategy or facilitate the construction of the habits to build a strategy in an iterative way. What happens to me is that I work at the principles level, at the strategy level, and then when we are going to land the strategy at the execution level, the question for the client is, how do you execute? So I am not defining, and I have not been in a situation where I need the customer to define, okay, you are going to work delivering with Scrum teams, defining the work in this way, blah, 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 or you are going to define, or you are going to execute using OKRs. It's in the other way. What I do in my workshops is how do you deliver? No, we deliver in this way. Okay, I'm going to fit the strategy and let's land the strategy in the way that you execute. And let's review the way that you execute so that we can get feedback from that execution loops into the strategy level. So we enable the right communication channels to give the information back. Because sometimes I'm talking about a company that has been 10 years working. I'm not the person to say how they have to execute. They are the people that they tell me how to execute.
Yeah, and in my case, it's a little bit the other way around. I usually get into a situation where the company has an idea or a goal, and they want to just deliver something and say, okay, where is this goal coming from? And I say, no, we have a strategy. Tell me a strategy, and then there is no strategy, and then we have to go one step higher. So one step higher and say, let's define the strategy. So then we go to define the strategy, and from there we create real goals or real objectives, and then everything follows. But it's typical to define the situation. We have these goals, and where is it coming from? Okay, we have these goals. No, there is not how this works. Right. Where is this coming from? And also, I like to add something to something that Joaquin was mentioning last day when we have a conversation. In the strategy world, let's say, OKRs is in the commodity utility phase. It's a kind of a well-established practice, whilst Wardley Maps, unlike other strategic approaches, is still in the, I would say, custom phase, maybe. So it's weird to find a situation where people want to use Wardley Maps and they don't know about OKRs.
I see what you're saying.
It's more normal to find.
Just to clarify, like I meant that in this context, I would be the one bringing in the map, right, when they are more comfortable with the OKR, because that's more common. So sometimes I wonder whether to even reveal the map to them, use it for me and my team, kind of live in their world mostly, and I'm using the map more for organizing the information. Whereas with some customers, yes, they have kind of, they're willing to kind of go that extra mile or go out of their comfort zone, then you kind of collaboratively build the map. So I think if I understood you correctly, it's about, confirming the strategy and then jumping to OKRs once we're ready to land the strategy. And once you're ready to go into execution, then only OKRs become relevant. And so that becomes a gate, I guess.
And how you want to execute on the strategy? What is the first milestone and the second? And we're not talking about features or initiative. We're talking about goals. Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah, there is. I have been working, for instance, I have been working in a startup that where for sure the strategy conversations it's done with many people, with the relevant people. And what happened it was that they've defined OKRs for the different initiatives. So every single initiative had at least one OKRs. And even though that it was a very small company where one project was led by one person, and that person has its own OKRs. It was like personal goals. But then when you look at that person in 6 months later, that person had already 2 people working with him, because part of the work was to hire people, identify the talent, blah, 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 blah. So for the scaling up from a very, very small group of people to a wide group of people, the fit works really well. Or at least in my case, it worked well.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Thanks so much for sharing.
Yeah. I don't know if
It was a mute.
anybody else has another question. Tristan is saying, regarding to questions, maybe you could also map the team skills momentum impact in the previous quarter, year next to a change or a line might be.
It's okay. It was just a question on if Craig was saying the alignment, or whether it wasn't clear whether they could move from A to B, but I guess part of that is in creating the OKR, unless it's wildly off target, the team should be aligned to producing that goal. But obviously, sometimes it might be more of a change than others. Could I ask a different question?
Yeah.
I think maps are very useful to communicate and share ideas, but sometimes the relative change, for example, between A and B, is a bit like just showing how much of a change that is, like how drastic, versus that it is realistically something you can do in a week or a month, or one person or 100 people can do. How do you feel about putting point A and point B? For example, just looking at your map and saying point B is slightly higher than point A, in terms of how much effort it is to move from there, or how much time it might take, or why would it be in this point, in order to track progress, to understand how have we moved from A to B? Because if you are attaching it to a definition of getting somewhere, like at the end of a quarter or something, the implies is, have we moved from A to B? And maps sometimes are not as designed to be as accurate or as referential as that. How do you see progress?
Well, I will tell you an example. Imagine that you have a component and you want to elevate your visibility. And it in a context of a product that you are putting in the market, and that you are in competition with other products. And you decide that one of the problems that you have is that you are not visible enough, and you want to gain market share. And that means you want to go from A to B, and it's to move up so you are more visible to the customer or to the user. Then you say, okay, what is the, so you define, okay, I want to do marketing campaigns. I'm going to put this money, these people, I'm going to just go and run. And it's not like run in a comfortable way. It's like run like the hell. If you know the Red Queen effect, that it's one of the climatic patterns, it's that in competition, everybody is moving in reality. So you can have the feeling that you are moving fast because you are doing an extraordinary effort to do a specific marketing campaigns and try to run as fast as possible, but your competition is also moving. And to measure the relative evolution of that, it's very difficult. It's
There-
very
there's-
difficult.
There's
And-
something.
and-
I'm sorry.
There is not, I will say, there is not like an end line that you say, hey, I arrived. That doesn't exist.
That's the cool thing about working with objectives, rather that there are no milestones in objectives, because you don't know when an objective will be achieved. You know that you are pursuing that objective, but you don't know when. So, but one thing that we recommend teams, sometimes teams define overly ambitious goals. For instance, I want to climb the Everest. Fair enough. That's a goal, but that's more like a mission, let's say. And say, okay, what are the milestones to go to the Everest? First, we need to go base camp in 20 days. Second camp in 10 days, but there's a storm coming, whatever. So then it's third camp in 15 more days, and then we go to the top. And so we ask the teams to break down this goal, keep the goal there, visible. It can be an OKR, but break down into second level OKRs so they can kind of track success in a more, let's say, easy way.
Yeah, the experience I have with mapping is that when you arrive to that point, the map is useless, and then you start mapping again. And I sometimes have say you should save that map, because what you did with that map, it's valuable in the sense that you demonstrated yourself that you can articulate something, work in front of uncertainty, and arrive to that point. And you should remember that in that way. But usually, once that the goal is done, it's like map out, blank paper, start again.
Yeah,
It makes sense.
I like both of your points. Thank you. Yeah, no, I've been trying to do some work on whether a visual difference tool, like in code, you can do see what has changed, because almost the act of a map, though that's not normal maybe for a landscape, or it takes so much in time for a landscape, but it does change. But on these maps, you want to see one per quarter or whatever period, and then almost animate or fade between them every time you make it new. But the relative change is the thing to see of, this is where it shifted. And it might not always be expected which things have shifted, because sometimes it is the perception or the marketplace or the running, like you said, that is not tracked on here. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting because in product development, it was this week, I was checking one application that is called Double Loop. And this double loop, what it was very funny thing. They have different, it's for software products. So in software products, you have the ability to measure a lot of things. They use features, how many people are using this feature, how many people are not using this feature. And you can have like different sensors in parts of the application, and then listen what the users are in reality utilizing. And this application Double Loop represent all that in a visual way with components that they are linked. And I was telling the creator of that tool that it's a canvas, but that canvas contains objectives and it contains the evolution, because in software you can measure that in real time. And I was telling the founder of that company if he could just move the components in a way that it's representing a Wardley map, where the user is on the top, and in reality there are components, and the sensors are linked to the components. So in that way you can measure. So what I used to say is you need to put sensors to measure that evolution, but it's not part of the map, it's outside of the map. And we need to remember the limits of Wardley mapping. Wardley mapping is a qualitative tool, not a quantitative tool. And when you try to turn into quantitative term, sometimes it doesn't work. And at the end of the day, we need to take qualitative tool, Wardley mapping, then quantitative tool, our dashboard, KPIs, data, blah, blah, blah.
So I think we need to call it a day. We have to go. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. And we will be sharing all the content with you. And Joaquin,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
sorry
Have a
for my
great day.
voice. Bye.
Bye.